أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الصلاة والسلام على خير البشرية محمود الأهل المصطفى الأمجد حبيب الله العالمين قاسم محمد سلام
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد
وإلى بلد الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين الميامين صلوات.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
Once again, we've got a chance to talk about the Karbala and post Karbala. Karbala has happened on the day of Ashura, but the chapter of Imam Hussein and the chapter of Karbala continues the rest of our lives. And immediately after the second day of Ashura, there are gruesome tragedies that occurred and atrocities that has been inflicted upon the children and the women of Imam Hussein's camp. It is a miracle of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala if you think about it, that 60,000 more than, different riwayats have different quotations of numbers. Soldiers were too many on the Yazid side. And when they were started actually, this tragedy in Karbala on the 10th day of Muharram, on the day of Ashura, how miraculously, according to the divine order of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the position of Imam Sajjad has been very, historians have written and talked about it too much. The post Karbala and post Karbala in the shade of Imam Sajjad and Bibi Zainab Salam. I always talk about this incident that happened during the imprisonment of Bibi Zainab Salamullah alayhi and children in Yazid's prison in Sham. That those who've been to Sham, they know that place is now under siege again, under the different management. But that place has got a significance in its own, because when Bibi Zainab Salamullah alayhi was sleeping one day and realized that we have lost, my brother has been slain, my brothers, so many family members, 18 brothers have been slaughtered, killed. The tragedy, the gruesome tragedy that occurred is, we have finished. And while I believe when she was sleeping in these thoughts, her grandfather Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam
محمد وآل محمد.
he came and he said that don't dishearten my child, don't dishearten my grandchild. I will create a nation that will cry for and remember your brother and the tragedy of Karbala until the Yawm al-Qiyamah. So this miracle that we are now witnessing in our eyes, that you can see that it is the promise of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And this is no ordinary incident. It is an incident of a greater significance. Why? Because what is hidden behind this incident is very weighty thing. And weighty thing is the religion of Islam, the thoughts behind keeping mankind, not only Muslims, mankind on the straight and narrow path, on Sirat al-Mustaqim, implementing Quran, implementing all of those things that Rasulullah wanted to his ummah. And what a tragical way of inculcating that in humanity. So, understanding, and I baffle every day of my life when I read something about Karbala. And I think it's very important that people should develop a habit of reading about Karbala and about the incident that takes place since Karbala up until this day, because everything in this day is connected to each other. What happened in that time, historians have written, and more difficult situations came in the Arabian Peninsula, in Iraq, and Iran, and all the other places. History is 1,400 years old, is not a bad, too old history in that sense. But what happened for Ahl al-Bayt and for Karbala, for Imam Hussein, for the people who followed during the time of Imamat, at least the notion of Imamat was implemented, saved, and survived. Alhamdulillah, we can say that it's not survived, but now thriving. It's thrive. First, we have remembered that in many different periods before our lives, before there were different times when people were unable to go to Karbala without losing their family members. People were prohibited to visit Imam Hussein and Amir al-Mu'minin. Why? Because the rulers don't want it, the public to know, as it was the plan at that time to finish them off, and you would not know them who they were. Yes, there were some uprisers, people who talked about it, uprising and throwing the rulers, and we finished them off. Little they knew that it is Allah's plan. Humanity plans something, Allah plans something else. And that is very important factor hidden behind the messages. The post Karbala and pre Karbala, if you think about it, political condition and pre Karbala, and then Karbala happened, 10th day of Ashura happened, and then post Karbala is more important, more interesting for our lives because we have to do our duty as the duty of those who survived Karbala did their best. Under the chains, under the horrendous imprisonment of Yazid's army. Immediately, as you know, all the historical facts are all in front of you. They were chained, they were put into uh, a place and paraded from Karbala to Kufa, Kufa to Sham. And this journey, we are now going towards Arba'in, and Arba'in, that's what the people do. Mashi. People reenact that barefoot walking. And this is exactly what happened to the family of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And this is exactly what post Karbala teaches us, that if Bibi Zainab salamullah alayhi would not take that step, if Imam Sajjad would have not miraculously survived and held the mantle of Imamat, that what Imam Hussein has given to him while he was last time leaving the camp, he came to the camp of Imam Sajjad, he gave him the Imamah, and he said, look, you are now the Waqt Imam. After me, the message is that Imamat will continue in your. Imagine there is a field, the plains of Karbala, scattered bodies, headless bodies, and just imagine those kind of scenarios we've seen in films. Many films have been made on that, Mukhtar Nama, and all those films. The kind of images that we absorb is who will believe that this tragedy will have a life? This tragedy will finish here. No. Imam Sajjad, Zainab Salamullah alayhi, had commitment by the order of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to continue this journey, arduous journey, survive the journey, and then when finally many things happen in prison, as you know, Bibi Sakina has passed away in prison. Imam Sajjad had to bury her, without any details of kafan and all that. And the imprisonment of children and women throughout the period of almost a year, in fact. Historians have written that about almost a year period has passed away when that difficult period of imprisonment happened. And when finally they're released, that's another chapter in the history of Islam. Then when they returned back, the heads were given back to them. And that was a demand. Actually, there was a demand of Bibi Zainab Salam that our things which were looted should be given back to us. Our shahadas heads should be given back to us so we can actually bury them honorably. And a house should have been given to us in which we can commemorate, we can tell the people around us what has happened on the 10th day of Ashura. Even today, sometimes people are trying to subdue and push down the most powerful tragedy of mankind into an occasions. What else happened in 10th of Yunus come out from the stomach of a fish. That happened in 10th of you know, Musa has done something on the 10th day of on the day of Ashura. 10th of Ashura has been synonymous. If you look at the Sunni history,